My Stirling Single Part 38, painting the tender frame the correct colour and priming all of the wheel sets. As I mentioned in the previous episode, I think the builder of this engine got a bit confused between a Patrick Stirling Single and a Midland Spinner, which is also a single wheeler. The Stirling Single is a Great Northern Railway engine, and the colours were very different to the ones used on the Midland Railway. The quality of finish of the paint on these frames isn't too bad really, so what I'm doing here is using some cellulose thinners or lacquer thinner to degrease and clean up the surface. When doing a job like this, you have to be very careful. Lacquer thinner dissolves normal paint, and if I put too much on, it will dissolve the paint and it will become a mess. I've only applied the lacquer thinner to the cloth so that the cloth is damp, and as you can see, it's removing the grime and the oil, but it's leaving the paint intact. I could use white spirit for this job, which wouldn't dissolve the paint, but it doesn't seem to clean the paintwork as thoroughly. After wiping over the paintwork on the frame with the cellulose thinner cloth, then I use some wet or dry sandpaper to just clean up the surface, followed by using a toothbrush and again with very little in the way of cellulose thinners on it to wipe away all the debris caused by the sanding. Very soon I ended up with the frames being degreased on both sides and ready for a coat of paint. Because I rubbed down the paintwork, it's keyed for the next coat. I don't need to use a primer. I don't think I'm going to get any kind of interaction between the old paint and the new paint, mainly because the Midland red paint's been on these frames for quite a long time. In the previous episode I showed the paint removal from 2 of the wheel sets, and here in the solvent bath I'm removing the rest of the paint from the other wheels. The toothbrush made short work of removing the bulk of the paint, but there was a bit left, so I'll let the cellulose thinners dry. It's quite important to do this because you don't want to splash yourself with it. And then I went over everywhere on the wheels, using first of all a small wire brush, and then a larger cup-shaped wire brush, and after a while I'd removed 99.9% of the green paint. Whoever painted these wheels did it the same way as I do. I just paint the wheels using green paint. I don't use primer or anything like that. Although when I do repaint these wheels, I'm going to use some etching primer, and the only reason I'm going to use that is because I have plenty of it. I've lubricated the centre in the axle, and now I can fit it in the lathe, using the dead centre in the hole that I've lubricated, and by using emery cloth, fully clean up the wheel set. Even on a small lathe like a Myford ML7R, this job can be very dangerous. Cleaning the axle like this isn't too bad. It's when you start to clean the wheels. The edges of the wheels are quite rough, and I'm using a thick folded pad of emery cloth to clean them up. I notice on these wheels that there are 1 or 2 blowholes, not in important places. Most of the blowholes are on the inside of the wheels, but that's another reason why I'm going to use this high build etching primer to fill the holes before I paint them. I managed not to have a major accident when I did this job. That's because I'm always very careful when I work with machine tools. After sanding the wheels in the lathe, it's time to get rid of all the dust particles, and the best way to do that is to put them back in the cellulose thinners mixture. I let the wheel set dry thoroughly. All of the cellulose thinners has evaporated, and now it's in my wheel painting jig, and I'm using the high build etching primer. As I mentioned previously, with this wheel painting jig I can only paint one side of the wheels at any given time. I could have made a really special jig which rotated the wheels, holding them by the axles, but then that would take up space, and I don't have that much space in my workshop to have fancy jigs and fixtures laid all over the place. I like to keep things simple, and from my experience of girlfriends, that's always been the case. In no time at all, the wheel sets are entirely coated in the etching primer. I need to leave this for at least 24 hours before painting the wheel sets with Phoenix Precision Paints Great Northern Railway Green. And once I've done that, the tender wheels will match the ones on the locomotive. I never removed the locomotive wheels to paint them. All I did was rub down the existing paint and paint over the top with another coat, and they've been fine. The paint on the tender wheels was damaged, and that's why I removed it. After cleaning and rubbing down the main tender frames, I took them into the outer part of the workshop and I painted them with chocolate brown, which is the Great Northern Railway's colour. This is just one side that's been painted. I'll paint the other side when this side is dry. As a special treat, this is a clip of the paint drying. And that's it for now. Stay safe, thanks for watching, and I hope you found it useful. Please take the time to visit my Mainsteam Models website and click on the section of the website that says Video Playlists. And by doing that, you can find other videos that you may like to watch. And by using the playlists, you can actually watch the videos back to back.